Welcome back to the channel. This is Christina here. Today I'm going to go through my blood results. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to say before I start to go through those test results with you. And that is that 11 years ago now, 11 years ago, I had a life-threatening pregnancy and delivery that left me on life support and in hospital for over a month of my life. And there was a whole bunch of things that happened. So I was on life support for about a week then when my baby was delivered. And then I was in there for another three to 4-ish weeks after that, before I was allowed to go back home. Now, because the situation was so dire, there was a lot of things that actually happened in that pregnancy that kind of led to me developing a little bit of a phobia of working in the medical profession. I already was a little bit adjacent to that at that point already, but you know, I had to have like daily needles, and sometimes they would have a staff member that wasn't necessarily good at taking blood, and they would try 10 times pricking me all over to try and get blood out. And eventually they got to the point where they would go and get a special sort of like, it's a sonographer type of machine that would highlight where my actual veins were, to try and get bloods in, to get an IV in, for example, or to get bloods out, etc. And so there's a lot of trauma around getting needles and trauma about being in the hospital and all of that type of stuff. And so it's taken me a lot to get to the point of going and getting bloods done again. I did get bloods done in 2018, because at that point I was joining a program that required me to get bloods done in order for them to create the program for me. And so I got some bloods done then, but I haven't really gotten bloods since then until this year. This year, I feel actually mentally more stable to be able to go do that. And I have reached a level of curiosity about what's going on in my body and wanting to adjust accordingly. And so the last couple of years, I've started the approach of like, if I was my own practitioner, what are the things that I would do for me? And one of the things that I would do for me is actually request some bloods. And so I have gone ahead and I've had 2 lots of bloods done now. So my previous lot of bloods were done nearly 4 months ago, and not all of the so they weren't a complete blood at that point. It was just very specific things that I really wanted to know about. So I tested myself for the MTHFR gene mutation, and I do have a mutation on that genome, on that gene. So I do have that mutation. And I wanted to test things like my fasting insulin so that I could see where am I actually at with my fasting insulin at this point. Like, I would suggest that had I got fasting insulin done 2 years ago, that my insulin probably would have been very, very high. And so I wanted to just see what it was. And unfortunately, I didn't go get blood tests done at that point. I can't go back in time to actually to do those bloods, but I can deal with what I've got now. And so I got fasting insulin done, and at that point in time, it was 8. I got what is known as a insulin resistance test. So it basically tests fasting insulin, it tests glucose, and it does some mathematical equations for you about, how likely you are to have insulin resistance. I did also put in a test at that point for homocysteine, but the pathology that I went to, this was the first time of having private scripts, because I am clearly not going to a doctor. I don't want to go to a doctor. So I either do my bloods privately, or there is a new thing available in Australia where I can go order some of those really basic blood tests through Medicare. And so yeah, so I didn't have a full complete test done. It was just the things that I was specifically interested in. And this was the first time that this particular lab had actually taken private labs. And so they didn't know some of the things that they needed to do. So when I got that homocysteine done, it wasn't centrifuged. And so then by the time it arrived to the lab, it was non-viable for them to be able to actually test. And so that test came across to this lot. So I waited until I was getting my next lot of bloods done to get that homocysteine retested. So I don't have that previous homocysteine, and I kind of wish that I did, but I can't go back and actually change that at this point. And so I got the fasting insulin. I got thyroid done as well. So previously I'd had some thyroid antibodies. So I just got some basic thyroid panel done, and the thyroid antibodies were no longer present. And my TSH was like 1.7 or 1.9 at that point. So it was in what I would consider an optimal range. So that's the other thing that I should mention is that, as a naturopath and working in functional medicine, we look at, so this might be your allopathic model of like inside this range, you can't be diagnosed, or we can't diagnose you yet with a condition, and we therefore can't medicate you for it. Now, there's a little bit of give and take in that, but that's generally like this is the regulations of like outside this range. Now I can prescribe you with a drug, or we can recommend a surgery because, let's be honest, that a lot of the tools that your normal general allopathic medicine is going to be able to access are those things. Now, they may have some lifestyle advice, etc. They might send you off to a dietitian or recommend you go somewhere else into those specialties, but the general port of call is going to be inside this range. There's not that much we can do for you. Outside this range, we can now prescribe you with a medication. We can send you off to a particular specialist and all of that type of stuff, or maybe recommend you for a surgery. You qualify for things. Now, for me as a functional medicine practitioner, I work inside this range, and this is where we're looking at optimal health. So what we're going for is not just, am I sick, but am I optimally functioning? Am I working well? Am I inside the peak performance range for my physiology? And so that's kind of what we're looking at. And if you're outside this range, but still inside this range, then that's when we want to implement some lifestyle strategies, some natural therapies, etc., to bring you back inside that optimal range. So you don't have to go down that pathway of being diagnosed with an illness, etc., if it can be avoided. So for me, when I'm looking at my bloods and when I talk about them today, I'm talking about them from, primarily that functional range perspective. Okay. I will also say, if you're new to the channel, hello, my name is Christina. I'm a naturopath, herbalist, life coach, as well as carnivore. I have been for 2 years so far, 2.5 years. I've lost 100 pounds. I've regained sight, so I don't need to wear glasses anymore. My hair has grown back. My energy levels are up. My sleep is good. Yeah, all of that type of stuff. And currently, I am on day 52 of the Lion's Diet version of carnivore. So I made a decision a month or so ago that I wanted to give the Lion's Diet a go, just to see if there was any extra benefits for me in that, if maybe something that I was eating was contributing to me continuing to not lose, because I've been roughly about the same for almost a year now. And, I've gone up and down, and I've done some things that have helped to bring that down, etc. And I've been focusing on my metabolic health and working on that, but weight and size have roughly stayed the same. And so I was looking to see, maybe it's some dairy, maybe it's the butter, maybe it's the eggs, maybe it's the chicken and the other stuff that are contributing to this. And so I've made those switches just to kind of see and experiment with myself. And so I've gotten some bloods done after 30 days of carnivore. Now, I do want to get some bloods done because now I've done my 30 days, I actually really want to keep going until at least 90. That's kind of my goal at the moment, is to hit the 90-day mark. And at that point, I may consider to bring some things in, but my goal is to try and keep my body in the state that it's currently in at the moment, which is actually a really good one, because my ketones are finally coming up after 2 years. I'm finally getting into ketosis. Like, I could periodically get into ketosis prior to this, but I wasn't like fully getting into ketosis. So I wasn't spending a whole day, like I wasn't waking up in ketosis, for example. And I'm still not quite there. I am almost there, and it's almost getting to that place of boring, which is fantastic. It's the place that I want it to be, where I wake up in the morning and I know, yep, I'm already in ketosis. That's exactly what I actually want it to be. So that then once I've done that for a period of time, so usually 3 to 6 months, I'm going to say to clients that, let's try and get you in ketosis for 3 to 6 months. Once we're really solidly in that space, then we can start playing with reducing the fat that's coming in your mouth so that we can pull more fat off of your body, etc., and play around with those things. But first, we want to get our bodies used to being in that, because like for me, most likely my whole life, I have been a carbohydrate burner. And so I want to actually switch that up by switching from being a carb burner into a ketone burner. And it's going to take time for my body to get used to that being my primary energy source. And so I want to just let it do what it needs to do without putting added stress and so on, that it has to lose weight, that it has to do this, that every day I get up, I should, see the number a little bit different, or every week I should see different measurements on the scales. I just want to let it do what it needs to do to reset, because once the metabolism has reset, the weight loss stuff is the inevitability of the outcomes of a healthy metabolic system. I can, do some exercise. I can change up my fat and, protein ratios and play around with that a little bit more. But I've got to be gentle and kind to my body and allow it the patience that it needs and the grace that it needs to actually get there. So with that said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and take you through the blood tests that I have had done recently. So I'm just picking which one to start with. Okay, so this one we've got here, this is my pathology report of generally my general bloods. So the status is it was fasting. So this was the fasting blood test. Now, for me, sodium, I really like to see people like 140 is the perfect number. It's the perfect balance. It's kind of like where we really want it to be. Now, one of the things that I have found recently is that not enough people are having enough salt. Now, it's one of probably the most common things I'm going to have to say to people at the moment is make sure that you're increasing your salt, or that you're having enough salt, because sodium, we've got what's called in our cells the sodium potassium channel or pathway, or pump. Some people will refer to it as a pump. Now, if you've got water soluble vitamins and B vitamin, for example, so if you are deficient in B6, B12, B3, whatever, B vitamins are what are known as water soluble vitamins. And so what needs to happen to be able to bring them inside the actual cell where they can be functional and they can be used is we need to have enough sodium or enough salt there. And if there isn't enough salt, you can consume more B vitamins, but they won't actually get activated into the actual cells themselves. So therefore it won't be usable for you. You won't be able to access it. And you're still going to suffer from the symptoms of being low in that area, which can be like depression, mood instability, low energy, low detoxification, like a whole bunch of things are affected by the amount of B vitamins you can bring in. And if your sodium is not enough, then you're not going to bring in as much of those water soluble vitamins, which the B vitamins are one of those. There are a couple of others that are water soluble as well. And so for me, one of the most common things I've had to say on repeat recently is eat more salt, consume more salt, like not just like the cheap table salt, but like really good quality mineral salt, because that is the thing that's going to actually remineralize your body, which is going to be great for your teeth and your bones and all sorts of other parts of your body. But also that sodium in there is actually going to help to transport those water soluble vitamins inside the actual cell. And so the thing that I've seen a lot on a lot of people's blood tests is that their sodium is too low. And part of that conversation is this whole sort of teaching that we've had for a really long time that sodium affects your blood pressure. And if you have too much salt, your blood pressure is going to be bad, and it's going to affect this and this and this and this and this. Well, what that has meant is we've had like this low salt movement where people are thinking that they are well salting their food, but because their body is so used to being deficient in salt, they actually, even when they lift that salt up a little bit, it's not enough to build up from their deficiency that they've had for such a long period of time because of this low sodium sort of message that's been out there. All right, so the next one on there is my potassium. Now my perfect number, I will say, is 4.5. So like I'm right within the range of like being really, really good. Chloride is good. Bicarb is good. Urea is good. So urea for me is one of those signs, and it'll be different for different practitioners. But for me, urea is one of those signs that when it is too high, that the microbes in the gut are out of balance, because there are particular microbes that live in your gut that actually consume uric acid. And so they actually eat those things. And so if you're getting a little bit more urea in your actual blood, that's a sign that maybe there's not quite enough of those guys living in your gut, and we might need to add in a probiotic or some probiotic rich foods. So that for me. I'm really in the good range. 4.5 is kind of what I go for. And so I'm like really there. Creatine is good. This is an indication of like how my liver is, how my kidney is functioning. Same with the urea. Like they both give me some indications about how my kidneys are functioning. Same with my EGFR, which is glomerular filtration rate. And so above a 90, I'm doing, my kidneys are working really well, which is great for me. And I say that for me because when I had that pregnancy, what I had was placenta accreta, and my placenta percreta. So my placenta had eaten through my uterus into my major blood supply, as well as into the attachment of the bladder and the urea, like the urethra. It was right on that attachment. It had eaten through those things, those parts of my body. And that then has created some kidney complications for me, where that, if I don't go to the bathroom often enough, and say I'm holding on for a really long time, then some of that urine is going to go back up to the kidney, and it's called kidney reflux, where the urine is coming back to the kidney, and that can be problematic for my kidneys and damage the kidneys. So for me, looking at my kidney signs here, that's really positive. Calcium is good. Corrected calcium is good. Magnesium is good. It could actually be a little bit higher. And so Epsom salt baths, for example, can be a really great way of bringing up magnesium. Now, magnesium is one of those nutrients where we actually absorb it better through our skin than we do by taking it as a supplement. Now, you certainly could take it as a supplement. If I was eating something else, I would encourage myself to eat some sardines, because that will help to bring up magnesium as well. I'm not eating sardines at the moment. And so, doing things like Epsom salt baths, or using a magnesium oil spray or a magnesium cream can be ways of actually bringing that magnesium up. So it could be a little bit higher. It's not terrible, but it could certainly be a little bit higher as well, which will just aid in relaxation. Phosphorus is good. Bilirubin. Bilirubin is one of the ways that we detox out of our liver, so that bilirubins get dumped into the digestive system and we detox those out. It's within the range of telling me that my liver's doing some detoxification right now. And it's balanced. It's good. All right, so here we start to move into what are known as the liver enzymes. And most of my liver enzymes are within range, except for the ALT. And so that really is just suggesting to me that my liver is working really hard right now, which I would expect because one, on lions, I've cut out a heap of other things. So my liver's going, great, let's get rid of all this sort of stuff. Let's clean out the closet and chuck everything out. And so I would expect, it's not a surprise, as opposed to an expectation. It's not a surprise to me that is raised. It's not terrible in the sense of, like, I've seen some liver enzymes that have been really greatly out. And so I'm not actually concerned about it, but it is one of those things that I've marked on my list of, like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm supporting my liver more and doing things that actually help support my liver more. And I'm going to talk about that stuff at the end. Protein, my protein levels could be a bit higher. They're, 67. I would like to see them more in the 70s. But at this point in time, and this is where I think about carnivore from different perspectives as well, of like, what is my goal right now? And my goal right now is to get that insulin down. And as that insulin is down, then I'm going to be going into gluconeogenesis less, and I'm going to be turning that protein less into carbohydrate. So that process will happen less. And at that point, I can then lift up that protein and actually rebuild some more of my own protein inside of my body. Albumin. So my albumin has risen from previous tests. So I think my last test, it was 36 or 38, which is low. Like it's a sign and indication of malnourishment. Like when you've got low albumin, that's a sign of malnourishment. And so again, my perfect number for like albumin is like 45. So I'm at 42. So I'm getting closer to that, which means that my nutrient stores are actually starting to fill up, which is fabulous. And so the feedback there is great for me. Cholesterol 5.2. Some people would panic about that. It's not out of reference range for the allopathic model. It's not something that I'm going to consider anyway. Now, triglycerides. are the thing that I actually primarily look at when I'm looking at cholesterol, because I want to see what are the triglycerides like. And so my triglycerides are 0.6, which tells me that, my body's actually doing quite well in that regard. Like there's not a lot of inflammatory damage that is taking place. That doesn't mean that there isn't, but it just means that there isn't a lot in that sense. Good. So that is that one. And I will go and share a different one. Actually, I think I just shared the same one. Let me delete that one and stop screen sharing. And I will find another one. And I will say thank you for your patience as I work out this technology. All right, so this one is my iron study. Now, my iron levels could be a little bit higher. I would actually like to see them more in the 20s, but I certainly don't have anemia, so I don't need to worry about it from that perspective. Transferrin, again, I'd like to see that a little bit higher as well. Again, I wouldn't be classified from an allopathic model as being in anemia, but I would like to see that a little bit higher. My TIBC, I'd like to see that a little bit higher as well. I'd like to see it in the 50s at least. Saturation, 27. Again, I would like to see that a little bit higher. I'd like to see that like in the 30s. But none of those there indicate that I have what would be considered low iron, and to think about anemia as being a problem there. And it's certainly not. And it's been a little while since I've had these tests done. So part of my a thought process here is I'm going to get these done here. So I've got I've stamped some time. And then, in 2 months' time, when I finish my 90 days, I'll likely get some more blood tests done and actually compare them and see what has the change been. Now, one of the changes that I'm going to be super interested in is this last one here, which is ferritin. So my ferritin is 626, which is actually considerably high. Now, that's a sign that there is absolutely some inflammation there. And I would expect that there would be some inflammation there because, I've had, undiagnosed diabetes for however long I've had it. It was, probably a while since I checked my blood glucose prior to checking before starting Carnivore. And so it was probably wildly out of control at that point for quite some time. So I'd expect that there would actually be some damage there and that my body actually has to resolve and heal that damage. Now, something I could do is I could go and donate blood, and that will help to bring that number down considerably, and maybe get me on top of that a little bit quicker. I don't actually want to choose that pathway. Now, I will choose that pathway if I need it. So if I go get another blood test done and it's still like I'm not seeing it actually come down, then I will definitely go and donate some blood. But at this point in time, I really want to use the tools that I have as a practitioner to actually help me do that. And so I have been doing things like Toxaprevent, which is activated volcanic ash. Now, I'll just quickly mention that it won't be allowed to be sold inside Australia after the 1st of November or the 31st of October. That's the cutoff line. The TGA have said no more. We're not going to have this product in Australia. We're not going to sell this product in Australia. That doesn't mean you can't access it. You can certainly buy it off of Amazon and so on and get it sent in, but it will be more costly and you won't be able to access it as easily. So I'm using that while I've currently still got some stocks of it. And so I'm using Toxaprevent and I'm max dosing that because that helps to lift and reduce toxins within inside of the body. And so I'm doing that as well as a whole bunch of other things to actually help my liver do more of the detoxification process and get on top of this excess ferritin and so on. So good. Remember to pop any questions you might have below in the comment section. So when I'm thinking about my ferritin as well, some of my thought process there is I actually first, before I go and do something like donate blood, is I really want to work the things that I have to actually help. Now, I think maybe only got halfway through talking about what Toxaprevent is, but Toxaprevent is activated or cleaned volcanic ash. So you might also know it as Klonopin or zeolite, but the difference is that it's actually cleaned, whereas those products are not cleaned. So it's cleaned by removing and sort of think about it like a magnet, pulling the the toxins that have bound to those molecules, pulling them out of the receptors so that all of those receptors are now available to actually pull those toxins out of your body when it's inside of your body. And one of the things I like about it is that it doesn't actually leave the digestive system. It stays within the digestive system, and like a magnet, it draws those toxins into itself, which, you know, aids the liver because it doesn't have to do extra work, and it just binds with them and you poop it out. And so I'm using that as one of the tools to help me reduce my ferritin and get on top of some of the inflammatory stuff that's going inside of my body, along with doing things like and continuing with the Lion's diet. And then we will see what actually happens. All right, so the next one that I got here was super exciting for me because when I first started my journey, my fasting blood glucose was 21.2. And now I had my fasting blood glucose done and it was 5.3. Now, this was a little bit higher than my usual, but you know, I ran around a little bit before I actually went and got that blood test done. And the thing that I loved for me was that the comment, which is comment on glucose. Diabetes is unlikely if fasting glucose levels are less than 5.5. And of course, it goes on to say, well, you could go get a glucose challenge test done and so on. I'm definitely not going to do that. But for me, it was just like this reassurance of like, I started this because my fasting glucose was 21.2 and, potentially I was very sick at that point, and, potentially could have been a really big problem for me. And so having that comment was so reassuring of all the work that I've been doing over the last 2 years, because if anyone has actually gone on this journey, it's not necessarily easy, especially, I have absolutely had food addictions, and have been addicted to carbohydrates and foods. And, my family is certainly not carnivore. And so there's temptations around me all of the time. And, I have eaten my emotions, and, I've had to learn how to do things differently and set myself up for success, which is not easy. And a lot of people don't want to necessarily go on the journey that I have gone on, because it can be challenging. And so I am somewhat proud that I have achieved what I've achieved. And seeing that comment was just like one of those like moments. So that was great for me. All right, my next one. Okay, so this is my TSH. So I was tested 3 months ago, and at that time my TSH was 1.7. Now it's 0.71. So what that really is telling me is that my metabolic system is actually speeding up. My metabolism is speeding up. So it's getting faster. So what that means is that I'm going to be using essentially like, I will just even in my resting state, I will be using more calories than I did 3 months ago, because my metabolic system has sped up a little bit. Now, it's for me right in the sweet spot of where I want it to be. So the magic numbers for me as a functional medicine practitioner are 0.5 to 1.5. So I'm right in that spot of, and previously I was, but just is this indication that kind of like I feel good knowing that my metabolic system, my metabolism is actually speeding up, which is an indication that my metabolic system is getting better as well. All right, so this is just my general full blood count. So basically we're looking at, the size of my red cell particles. They're all good. There's nothing to write home about there. And then my white cells, which is, immune system and so on. And that is all good as well. So again, nothing to write home about there. My immune system is doing really well. My blood count, all the size particles are as they should be. And so I'm really happy with those results. All right, the next one. So this one is private testing that I had done. And yeah, so this is my vitamin D levels. So my vitamin D levels are 72. Now, based on this information, I really want my vitamin D to be 100 plus. Like that, I want it to be over 100. And that's kind of what I'm really looking for. And so I'm not quite there at this point in time. So I have added some vitamin D supplementation, and I am aiming to try and sunbathe a couple of times a week. Now, that's a little bit challenging for me because of like the sunbathing is a little bit challenging. We're now starting to get the sun come out, which is fabulous. So I can certainly do that more now, and it's less cold and so on. but the other part of that is that, I've got teenagers that have got jobs at the moment, and I am the sole driver for my family. So when they're working, I'm often running people around. And so that kind of makes it a little bit harder to, go and spend, 40 minutes outside sunbathing to help build up my vitamin D levels. So it's not perfect. So I'm doing the best that I can to try and get myself outside more in the sun. But I'm also taking a little bit of supplementation as well at the moment to actually help me with that. All right, fasting glucose was the same on this test, 5.3. My fasting insulin. So previously ago, I had that test done, I think 3 months ago. My fasting insulin at that point was an 8. It's come down now to 7.2. And that's super exciting for me. Like, just to see that there was a movement within a couple of months that it started to drop down is fabulous. I would have loved to it have been more, but I'm going to celebrate the 0.8 of a reduction that I actually got. And I want that number to be 5 and under. 5 or under is what I'm really looking for. And so I'm getting closer to where I want to go. And that's a celebration for me. So this is basically giving an indication of insulin resistance. So you can see here the green is good, the red is not so good. And so as you can see, previously I was about here on that, and it's coming back down. It's coming down as well. So that's great as well. Now, the last thing on my test here is CA19-9 antigens. So this is an antigen that is an indication of cancers, and particularly pancreatic cancer. Now, because of fasting, my fasting insulin being high, having high blood glucose, etc., etc., I thought that it would be appropriate just to check on what my risk factors were, or what the antigens were, or if there was any indications of a problem with my pancreas from a cancerous perspective. And so I ran that test, and I'm super excited to see that I was a 6, which means I'm not worried about pancreatic cancer at this point in time, which again is great for me. All right. Okay, so I also privately tested homocysteine. So I wanted to get that done last time. There was a problem with that blood sample, so I wasn't able to get the results. And so a lab let me rerun the test, but I waited until this next lot of bloods to actually get that done. Now, for me, as a practitioner, the magic number that I'm really looking for with homocysteine is like 6. And above that is going to tell me that my B vitamins are too low, which is what mine is like. So mine is double what I actually want it to be. So that's an indication of, in other parts of medicine, it can be an indication of heart inflammation and problems with the heart. So somebody who's had a heart attack, for example, they're likely to check their homocysteine to just kind of watch what that is. Now, I'm inside that allopathic range model, but actually I really want to be more, I really want to hit that 6. So it just is an indication that my B vitamins are too low. So how that essentially works is homocysteine in our body connects with B vitamins, and together they then go and make methionine, and then that converts into SAMe, and then that converts into things like, dopamine, norepinephrine, melatonin, all of those brain chemicals, as well as being a major methyl donor for all the other parts of our body to actually work. So we need it for liver detoxification, we need it for brain function, we need it for mood stability, we need it for all sorts of parts of our body. And so basically that feedback on my homocysteine is that my B vitamins are too low. Now, I can't say if that's actually improved on carnivore or has not improved on carnivore because I don't have those results. So what I'm currently doing for my homocysteine at this point in time is I'm just taking a activated B vitamin. And, again, I'm going to get that retested in about 2 months' time to see what my results are then, as to whether I've caught up. Now, my guess, if I was to give you an educated guess on whether I think my B vitamins have come up or gone down on lions or carnivores, etc., my guess is actually that they've come up, that they were probably more significantly out of range. Now, again, I don't have the test, so I can't tell you that for certain, but based on the state of my health and the conditions that I had, the likelihood is that my homocysteine probably was much higher than it currently is, and that it's actually probably improved. So that's something that I'm going to watch when I do my next lot of bloods, just to actually see what's happening with my homocysteine. Has that improved? Now, if I wasn't doing lines at this point in time, and this is where I think about carnivore as specific goals for specific sort of the journey, right? There's sort of like milestones to hit along the journey. And that's where I'm okay with using supplementation to help hit some of those milestones. But my ultimate goal is not to be on supplements. And so right now I'm taking what I need to actually help my body hit some of those goals, which is like this first goal is I really want to get that insulin down, and then I can focus on bringing in some other foods without them having as much impact on my metabolic health. And so if I wasn't doing Lion's diet, I would be encouraging myself to eat sardines because they're a great source of B vitamins. I would be encouraging myself to eat egg yolks and maybe have more egg yolks than egg whites. So if I was making a scramble, for example, I might make scrambled eggs and add in a couple of egg yolks, extra egg yolks, because those egg yolks are full of choline. They're also full of B vitamins, and we need that choline for the brain function and for a whole bunch of other things in our body. But we also need those B vitamins for detoxification, etc., etc. So one, I'm taking an activated B. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm taking beef liver capsules at the moment. Now, if I had the capability of buying some good quality beef liver, I would be eating it. I haven't found any that local to me at this point, where somebody is selling beef liver or lamb's liver, and that I can actually buy them and add that into my diet. I haven't found that at this point. And so I'm just taking a dehydrated one for now. If I do find one, I will start to consume that, because I would rather eat my supplements or my nutrients than take them. But I kind of don't think about like dehydrated beef liver in a capsule as a supplement. I think about it's a food. It's just in a supplement form, and that way it's easy for me to access. So that's what I'm doing for my liver and so on at the moment, and those B vitamins, because there's lots of B vitamins in liver. All right, so this was my cholesterol panel. So my cholesterol was 5.2. I'm not concerned. It's inside the allopathic range there anyway. Triglycerides, that's the number that I'm most interested in, 0.6. Fantastic. I want it to be a 1 or under, and it's well under that. HDL, I would like that to be a smidge higher. Like I'd really like that to be 1.6 or above. So I'd like that to be a little bit higher. My LDL 3.5, so they've highlighted it to say, oh, there's a lipid problem there. There's not a lipid problem. I'm not concerned about that in any way, shape, or form. But don't trust me. This is not medical advice for you. This is me talking about my opinion on me. So there we go. That is all of my blood tests that I have had done in the last couple of weeks. And so I will be doing, again, I'll do some more in the upcoming future. So what am I doing for my health and based on those blood test results? So one, when I started to get to, I think it was around like day 27-ish of the Lion's diet, I was having some heart palpitations. And, that was an indication to me that, my electrolytes were a bit out. But I really wanted to get across the line to the 30 days. And then after the 30 days, I tested those electrolytes. So I tested my blood glucose and my ketones to see, me adding these electrolytes, is it actually changing or altering or having any negative impact on those blood test results? And thankfully, I can say that it's not. So I get to enjoy some electrolyte water, or some electrolytes that I add to my water. And so that's one of the things that I'm doing. I've added the activated B vitamins. I've added the beef liver capsules, and some NAC. So NAC is it's N-acetylcholine. So it's basically, it helps the liver with the processes of detoxification. So having a look at my bloods, I can see that my liver is working really hard. It's got a couple of jobs to do. There's some inflammation going on. So I've added those extra things into my daily protocols to actually help me with that. So that plus some vitamin D, those are the things that I am doing, and lifestyle wise, trying to get out in the sun and actually do some detoxification by sunbathing, as well as absorbing some vitamin D, and so on and so forth. So those are my bloods. If you have any questions or any comments, feel free to drop them below and talk about them. If you are interested in having my opinion on maybe your bloods, you're welcome to book into a consult and we can have a chat about those things. Now, remember, this is not medical advice for you. This is me having an opinion on my own blood results and talking through my thought process on those things. So I hope this has been interesting and insightful for you, and I look forward to getting my next lot of bloods and being able to go through those with you as well. All right, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this. Remember to like and subscribe, and I look forward to talking with you again. Bye for now. See you later.